Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Sweet Combat, Season 1, Episode 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're picking up in the aftermath of last episode, and the director still doesn't want Tien to leave. It's like, alright, like, I forgot about that line of, we could put a mask on you and put a mosaic on you, so you don't have to worry about the butt whooping you're going to get. But he's like, I'm sorry, I know this isn't a laughing matter, but he's like, right, just like you could get stronger and all this stuff. He's just like, please don't transfer, which I thought was so interesting because once again, Hao is at this school too. I'm like, yeah, at least you still have one male student, but it's like there's already only two. The last thing you want to do is lose half your male population at this school, especially because it's meant to be co-ed. Like the more boys that stay here and graduate from here, the more other boys might be more likely to come to the college too now that it's co-ed. So I guess that's kind of the point. So it's like you don't want to lose anyone. Even later on when Hao showed up, he's like, please tell me you're not going to leave like Ming Tian, which I'm like, I love that he's, Ming Tian's going to leave. But then Hao looks at it like, once again, complete opposite perspectives to like Tian, where he's like, wait, if he leaves, that means I get all the girls' attention at this school, right? I'm like, I love that's his perspective on it. Because he's super hyped about it, because Tian's like, I'm not really into the whole tournament thing. I don't want to participate. Whereas like Hao was like, dude, this is so amazing. This is so good. I love that, like, because Jaegu in general, that character's supposed to be kind of your insert character to the wilds, and Tian's supposed to be your insert character for the university. But I think it's so interesting that like Hao kind of represents that too, because while Tien is off like not learning about how competitions work at the university, Hao is that insert character learning it from Zhao Mi, which she's explaining things, and then eventually she stops. It's like, why don't you just look this information up yourself? I'm not going to be your walkthrough guide on like how the stuff works at the university. I thought that was super cute. But I guess it also makes sense considering like Tien in comparison to Jaegu had no battle experience, no fighting experience. In this, Tien has fighting experience, so he's not as like green around the gills to some extent, but not to the extent that that Hao is. But I mean, he seems like he has some fight. I mean, that flying kick he did like in the first episode, so who knows? We haven't really gotten into his circumstances, but yeah, Tien's gonna put it off for now. You know, the director's like, yeah, just hold off, like, you know, I'll hold on to your formal, you know, withdrawal. And he's just so I loved it constantly, the constant bit of him looking at Tien's withdrawal form and just kind of like almost want to burst into tears. He's like, how do I bring this up to the headmaster about all of this? So, but yeah, picking up where with the whole Zhao Feng wanting to fight Queen and didn't even, you know, Tien, but when they try to shut down the matches last episode, we continue on with that, and Guanyan ends up challenging Yanan to a fight. And I think it's so interesting because obviously he kind of comes out this pseudo victor, but she calls him a cheater because he's using other moves, right? Because it's like, oh, it's supposed to be boxer versus boxer, but he starts mixing in other things. Granted, you're allowed to do that. A lot of stuff flies, you know, in the ring, you know. So it's like, yeah, she was just kind of like, oh, it's not it's not fair because I'm going into this thinking it's a boxer versus boxer, and it's like you're adding in other things like a tackle and then a grab and stuff and then a hold. So it's like you're not fighting like a boxer, which is so interesting because obviously that kind of plays in, and we'll probably dive into it more going forward, is like, you know, Yanan adding more to her repertoire, like keeping the foundation of being a boxer, but adding in other things. She can't just. I want to say. Well, I was about to say like because there are some characters that like add in some stuff to their fighting styles. So it doesn't come up too much about them adding in stuff. Like I said, like the tournament stuff, like is a lengthy part of the earlier part of the story, but it's only like a one-off thing. Like you never really get to see any other tournaments. There are other fights throughout the show, but those are connected to other circumstances. But either way, tangents and all that aside. But yeah, Yanan did not appreciate that, and she storms off. And we get to meet her dad, which I'm like, yeah! Her and her dad have a similar relationship in the show that they do in the webtoon, where it's just like, he's kind of like, they're arguing back and forth. Because the moment he heard like she potentially lost, he's like, wait! He's like, oh my god, I've been waiting. Like in high school, you were basically beating every guy that could beat you. But he's like, the fact is, the moment you found someone that you would lose to, I'd basically give them permission to marry you. And so he meets Guanan, and I love that it's like, oh, because Yanan is like, well, what if he's ugly? And he's like, well, plastic surgery is a thing, and we can correct whatever issues there are, because he's trying to like find someone for his little girl. And it's just like, I love their relationship so much, how like they go back and forth, you know. like I love like there you have a like weird relationship, but it's all stems from love. And he's so excited when he sees Guan Yan. It's like, oh my god, like you could be my daughter. Like, oh, obviously my daughter lost to you, and it's like, oh, like kind of ignore her, but oh my god, like I'm so excited. I hope they see you more and stuff like that. It's like he's so excited, and ignoring Yan all the way through. But I just think that's really cute. It's like oh, like inviting him. It's like she was like, oh yeah, why don't you stay over for dinner or something? He's like, yeah, why don't you? And she's like, Dad, shut up and stop. I love it. It's so adorable. The fact is that because I love to like there was a very specific dish they were like, yeah, that's all he's prepared. Because in the webtoon, basically they would eat the same pot of curry and her dad would just add water to it just to kind of make more of it. That was kind of like their everyday meal, so it almost feels like they're kind of paralleling that as a different meal, but kind of making it like, oh, it's not a real dinner that's being cooked, so I just thought that was so interesting. But I like that like Guan Yan and Yanan, like their issue is like she's like so pissed because it's like, yeah, you only won on a technicality, and even then I didn't even really lose, so it shouldn't count. So there's that. There's the queen of it all, which I love. You have Feng Yu like got the bike last episode. She's riding one, being like, yeah, he'll probably like this, and she's like, wait, why do I care if he likes it or not? I like it. Which I'm like, I like to say those cute queen moments. They're so, because those are like one of the most adorable elements of Queen's character. Like even in the webtoon, when you see her have those moments, like wait, like she gets like super bashful and just kind of like doesn't know, like I said, when you get to see that different side of her, I think it's so adorable. And yeah, I love it so much. And her just like constantly contemplating the whole thing. And then later on, she ended up running into Tian without realizing she ran into him because he's got a new part-time job. Basically, he's outside handing out flyers in a mascot outfit. And in that moment, he gets to see her smile. And she's like so happy about the rabbit because she's like, yeah, you remind me of a rabbit I had. I mean, it was pink. And I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. The toy she got from her Uncle G. I was like, that's super adorable. Sadly, the one that her, we learned last episode too, that her dad took away from her. So, not her dad, her grandfather took away from her. But like Tian got to see like a different side of her. She even went into the ice cream shop, remembering what Yanan said like last episode, like episode 2 about the ice cream thing of like, yeah, like, it gets to show off your girliness, and she gets to smile and she gets to feel like girly because the lady was like, oh, you want black coffee? She's like, you know what? No, I want the strawberry ice cream because she wanted to feel kind of girly and kind of, show that off. Once again, she's kind of got a little, not, Yanan doesn't have it to the same extent, but they both, once again, have that like, kind of a complex when it comes to being girly, so that's a whole thing. But yeah, like I said, for Tian, like his only experience with Queen so far has always been like, oh, she's always been fierce and scary and cold, but now I get to see her like smile and be adorable and cute. Like it's like, wow, like I didn't know Queen could have that side of herself. So another thing I got so excited about, I got so hyped on 2 different things. First and foremost, when Zhao Mi comes across the like posters for like, oh, like there's a job at a car washer, and she's calling up Tian, but is he already working here? I lost my shit. I was like, yeah, the car wash. I brought it up in the previous episodes. Jaegu works at the car wash in the webtoon. And so, because like I said, I couldn't remember if he has multiple jobs at the beginning of this series, but he definitely works the car wash the entire series. So for me, I was like, oh, that's so cool. So then hopefully we get some of the car washer like shenanigans that you get from the webtoon. I hope we get some of that translated into the show. But also like Zhao Mi wanting to help out, and she's taking photos and stuff, and it's just like, even saying like, oh my god, look at him working, he's so like handsome like a movie star. I'm like, yeah, I love it. She's like, yeah, I'm really sad that you might transfer, but she's like, no matter what, she's like, I promise that even if you transfer, you'll always have my support. And I'm like, that's the thing, she is his like, funny enough, his #1 cheerleader. I love it. It's super adorable. And then I love that this like, and it ends up being a big thing going forward. Obviously, it's just like the parallels between Queen and, in this case, Queen and Zhao Mi, or in the webtoon, Dao Dao and Queen, of just a whole like, they're on both opposite sides of spectrums where like Queen is very bashful about admitting how she feels around around the main protagonist, whereas like the Dao Dao or Xiaomi character is all about, nah, I'm very upfront about how I feel. Even later on being like, I promise, just don't transfer. I promise I'll leave you alone. I won't even try to force you to join the Taekwondo club anymore, you know? Also, using her adorableness to her advantage when she sprays somebody and the guy's like, she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And she's like batting her eyes and being super cute because she wants to help out Tian, but kind of made a mess of the situation. So I just thought that was so neat. I love that Queen had to go to Yan Yan about like, hey, I need your help. I need you to give Tian the bike. She's like, because if I give him the bike, he's not going to accept it. But if I don't give him the bike at all, I'm going to constantly have it on my mind. So it's like, it should be simple just to give him the bike. But, you know, it's complicated because she's afraid like, right, no matter what I do, Tian's always going to have an issue with me. You know, so ultimately, just like as Xiaomi's going home with Tian, you have Queen and Yanan making their way to his house, and I'm like, we have our first like gathering. I love it, and it's just like, yeah, the kids come out. Obviously, Tian's brother's super excited to see Queen, which I thought was so adorable. But either way, it's like, yeah, like come on inside. They're still kind of awkward around each other, obviously, because even Yanan was like, yeah, man, I don't know if I'd be able to handle all of this, like continuing between the both of you. But yeah, they go inside and, you know, offered the tea, and it's like, yeah, this place is kind of shabby. And for Queen, it's like, right, she had her preconceived notions of, oh, I thought I knew what poor was, but now I'm like, because I think that's something interesting. I feel like they don't really show in this show like the large gap of wealth and position that Queen is in comparison to everyone else. Because obviously it's super obvious on multiple occasions throughout the webtoon, but it's not, it's just kind of said, but it's never really like, you don't have the scale like you do in the webtoon, or just like, you know, the like fact that she can call in a security unit just like that, and they come in helicopters and everything. Like their wealth doesn't really get flexed in that same way. I mean, even then, like their wealth getting flexed is a gag. It's not meant to be like taken seriously, but it is still kind of a serious thing of, yeah, she just, her and her family are just that wealthy and powerful. You really just don't get a scale for that in the live action, is kind of my point. But yeah, like just her having that perspective of like, oh, I thought I knew what poor was, and then like, wow, looking at Tian's situation's complicated, and being afraid to drink the tea because it's like, oh, it looks like this, and it's just, it wasn't just Queen either. None of them drunk it, but it's like, yeah, these are the only tea leaves we had. So, because at first I was like, are you really serving that to me? Because the subtitle said water, or at least what I'm watching it on, the subtitle said water, which I was like, oh, ugh. I was like, that looks like this is a very U.S. What was it? Reference to make, but that looked like some Flint, Michigan water, and I was like, Jesus, and I was like, oh, it's supposed to be tea. I was like, oh, it must have been like a mistranslation, or maybe it's just kind of like, yeah, we just had regular water to mix with the tea, and that's why it looks like that. Like it's, I mean, the leaves were just like whatever tea leaves we had left, plus the water's probably not that great either, so maybe that's what that was in reference to. But I love her, his little brother scooting closer and closer to Queen, and it's just like, yeah. And even love Xiaomi being like, yeah, I was on TV, which I'm like, okay, interesting. Is that in reference to her mom's like show and stuff, like from the webtoon, or is it just like for like stuff from fighting from the university that's got her on TV? They didn't really dive into that. Like I said, I'm curious to see if that's something they dive into at all. But when it's all said and done, them playing, what was it, Slapjack, and Queen losing every time, and her being like, what, why am I not getting this? Because it's just, right, it's almost like she's playing with these little kids, and she just manages to lose every time because she's not quick enough. Even with her reflexes and everything, she can't handle it, you know? But they're like, yeah, you know, they're basking in the glory of like, yeah, like at the university, like, you know, we're three heroines and we grow up there because of like what the university made us into. And then they did a cockroach thing. I was like, yeah, they did the thing. They did the other thing too. Once again, I get too hyped about that. And I was like, yeah. And then like everyone's screaming and freaking out. And I was like, wait, are they going to, I was like, oh, this would be complete if they did the thing. And yet again, they did the thing of Queen ending up in Tian's ends. I was like, thank you. That's all I needed. I'm like, I love that you did that. Slight spoilers. Technically, it happens twice in the webtoon. that particular situation, specifically Queen ending up in Jaegu's arms in the webtoon. But I was like, dude, I'm so glad they did that, and him dropping her and her like bouncing back up, being like, why'd you grab me? He was like, you jumped into my arms. And she's like, almost kind of stammering about it. And Xiaomi's like pissed, like, no, why'd you use that as an excuse to get all close to him? I was like, I love how possessive that character can be when it comes to our MC, you know? But when it's all said and done, Queen and Tion talk, and you know, she's trying to come at it from the perspective like, here's the bike, and she's like, I don't really want it, you would take it back. She's like, oh, I'm not going to take it back, you're going to keep the bike. He's like, well, the bike is a mountain bike, it's not really designed for the purposes I need for delivery, like the narrow, you know, it could easily get caught in like maybe some like sewer grates or something, like, you know, it's just not designed for that. But you know, and she is coming from the perspective of she's trying to do the right thing, and Tion's fighting her a little bit, because I think it's hard for him in many different ways. Because she had even explained this a little bit to Yanan about why she pushes so hard for him to be in this fight, and even she asked Yanan, like, was I wrong this time? She's like, yeah, normally I'd have your back, but this is one of those situations I think you went a little too far. But she's like, I just wanted him to see how strong he is, be able to kind of like, instead of running away from situations, like being able to stand his ground and fight and defend himself. Like, once again, she had the best of intentions. It's like, it was just meant to, like, it's kind of a tough love thing of, I'm trying to force your hand, but she wasn't expecting Tion to be so resistant to it. And for her, it's like, I don't get it. Like, she notices, like, right, it seems like you've got some kind of training, but then like, why won't you fight? And for him, it's like, he doesn't want to turn to violence and stuff like that. It's just, he even says this line of, why can't you just let me be? I'm not asking you for your help or your understanding, but like, why can't you just let me be myself? Which you could tell that line struck a chord with Queen, just because it's like, right, she's had those same arguments with her grandfather, just like, let her, like, I mean, she had to deal with her whole life of trying to be herself and wanting to be herself, once again, having to fold and bend and be what other people want her to be. But like, Tion and her just are at an impasse, and they just can't get over that hump, you know? So it's like the whole situation kind of blew up in her face again, despite everything. And especially like, it complicates things when Tion is like talking to his little brother who wants to go to the Taekwondo club, but his like, Tion is so adamant about, no, I don't want you to be a part of anything, like violence won't solve anything. Like, it's like, it's so interesting he's taking this approach. I'm like, what happened that made you do that? We'll get to that in a second. But then he's like, you know, his brother's pissed because it's like, right, you get to go to a university where you get to learn boxing. For him, it's like, it's hypocritical. Like, you won't let me do this thing. And it's like, for him, it's like, you may hate me and you may not understand, but I'm doing this because I don't want you to do something that could be a part of something that destroyed our lives. Because we get the flashback, because obviously as a kid, not even just a kid, up until like probably a few years ago, like as a teenager, he was training with his father, you know? And then we find out the truth, what ends up connecting, like how Uncle G like connects into Tion's story. He was his father's final opponent. He died in the ring fighting Tion's father, and that's where everything fell apart. Like, not only did his father accidentally kill someone in the ring, and I think the guilt over that, like maybe Uncle G like had a pre-existing condition, whatever the case may have been, and because of that, it ended up making like he ended up drinking to kind of deal with like the trauma of like, yeah, regardless of it all, accident or not, you're still responsible for killing someone in the ring. Like, something just went wrong, who knows? But now it's like, and he saw what that did to his dad, so it's like, I don't want to ever put myself in a situation where I have to use violence, even though that was in a sports manner. Like, even though it was, I mean, for the most part, it seemed like it was like a legit boxing match. It's still a thing of it ended like that, and it's the trauma of that he's like like he's using that as his reason for not wanting like to fight, like why he's choosing not to fight. You know, he's too scared of that. And once again, he saw what that did to his dad, what it did to his family. Once again, his dad's drinking and stuff made his mom leave. And he'd even said this line where it's like, he's like, if I told my mom back then, you know, I get what you're going through, but at the end of the day, you still have us. Would she have stayed, you know? And that is kind of heartbreaking. Like he has so much pain and guilt associated with it. You know, like I said, it plays into just like Jaegu's resistance to kind of be around people and open up to people, especially like, once again, his issues with girls, especially specifically with Queen, kind of stemmed from his issues of like, yo, my mom just straight up abandoned me. You know, because once again, it's like it's a 1-2 punch in a different order. that's why I think they're also leaning into it more with like his dad, especially knowing how they've tied the story. Because I was like, man, we're getting more of the dad. That's so wild. And now I see why, because they shifted that story to be what it is. Whereas, like I said, his personal issues with women kind of stem from, hey, my mom kind of abandoned me. And once again, we still see that to some extent. Like, it's still the thing of he looks at Queen, and he even said that line when it came to his mom, like, do cold-hearted people like shed warm tears or something like that? So once again, he looks at his mom's eyes and he sees that same thing in Queen, and that's also what also irks him a little bit about her. Which, you know, what irks her the most is like, it's like, hey, I swallowed my pride, I try to do everything, but he's still so stubborn and he won't listen. Because she's trying to understand, like, why won't he? She's trying to figure out what is his deal, like, why won't he fight, you know? Because she had actually basically told him to, hey, stop using me as your excuse. You don't want to fight, you don't want to do this, fine, but stop using me or the university as an excuse for you to be a coward and running away, you know? So a lot of that's something that both Queen has to sit with, as well as what Tion has to sit with. But I love the whole situation at the when she's playing slapjack with her brother, and it's just the two of them, and she's so excited. I'm like, she's like a little kid, because she didn't, like, her childhood is, you know, a little complicated, obviously. So her having that moment, just getting so giddy, like, I won, you lost again, especially considering she kept losing over and over at Tion's place. But it's something like really cute and adorable about her. Once again, that cuteness to that character, and, you know, all more power, like, even more from like the actress, like, you know, conveying that so well. Just like, it puts a smile on your face, like seeing how adorable she is, you know. I just thought that was just so dope. And her brother's just like, oh, do we really have to do this? She's like, go ahead. And she's like, I'm gonna start here. Yeah, I want to get. And you're like, she's so excited, and it just makes you smile and happy. So, and then finally we had the episode ends with the headmaster trying to step in. He's trying to, like, I think he's brewing coffee, and he's got Queen there and he's got Tion there. He wants them to actually talk to them, trying to find some middle ground here. I'm sure we'll get more about that, obviously, when the next episode picks up with that. But I'm so excited to continue this, because so excited to see ultimately where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.